Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're staying safe, healthy, and social distancing. My name is Seneca Hippola. I'm the branch manager for Sinclair in Edmonton. We'd like to personally thank everyone for joining us today for our sixth session titled Coping with COVID. With that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Sam Maserati and Christine Russell from Dentalook. For those of you that don't know, Dentalook is a 14 dental practice company spread across 2 provinces. Sam is a dentist and the founder and CEO of Dentalook. Christine has her MBA and is the Director of Business Development. She brings many years of leadership in the healthcare space. Today, Sam and Christine will be sharing with us their views on coping with COVID, and specifically starting up clinics, how things are going to change, and how they're going to deal with it. At the end, if there's time, we'll take some live questions from you, the audience. Please use the Q&A section to submit your questions. With that, I'm going to pass along to Sam and Christine.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really exciting for us as a team in Dentalook to have you all on board. As you can see, the title of our presentation today is From Protocol to Application. And basically what we want to do is we want to take you in a journey with us to share with you how did we as a group practice managed in opening our practices in Saskatchewan. With that, we get started. So with me today, I have one of my team members today. Christine is with me on the call. Hi, Christine. I have a lot of other team members that are on the call today that I want to recognize, that without them, this presentation wouldn't be possible. I want to thank everyone in my operation team that have worked really hard. I know many of them are on the call. Say hi to Amy, Cheryl, Ode, Mandy, and everyone that have worked with us in their life. Thank you so much. So this group of people have worked really hard in the last couple of weeks to really get our practices back to track. And in Dentalook, we're again a small group, but we are really passionate about bringing people together and adding value to everyone that is part of our family and outside that. So the story starts actually almost a month, 4 to 6 weeks ago, when I kind of had a meeting with my team, and it was a very hypothetical question. And the question was, if we decided to reopen our practices, what do we need to do? What are the steps we have to do? When are we going to be able to do that? And what are the steps that we have to take to be able to do that? It's a very hypothetical question. We did a brainstorming session. We put a lot of thought on a paper, and we started kind of organizing our thoughts into kind of a protocol. Now, don't quote me for this, but the going joke is that someone have leaked our document to a lot of the regulatory bodies across Canada, and they have implemented a lot of our ideas. Again, good tap on our shoulder, but actually there's an element of truth, because when we looked at the regulation, we were kind of spot on. We had to do a lot of predictions and kind of use our own judgment, and we came up with kind of an idea on how we're gonna move forward with this. I don't know if you've ever passed through Saskatchewan, but people from Saskatchewan get this joke really 100%. Saskatchewan is that land of the living skies. I mean, the joke in Saskatchewan is that if you let your dog run, you can watch it running for a few days. Saskatchewan is flat. There's some areas that are not flat. Saskatchewan is predominantly flat. And even with COVID, we were able to actually flatten the curve pretty quickly. And the college in Saskatchewan was one of the pioneer people that came up with a regulation on how to reopen the economy. The government came up with a plan. The college came up with a plan. And the good thing, we were positioned at a point where we were already putting some motion into play. So it couldn't have came at a better time. So the goals of this presentation is simple. We all recognize that these are unusual times. The other thing is, we know that a lot of our colleagues might be in a situation where, like, what do I do? My practice have been shut down. How do I go back to work? We want to kind of instill a measure of hope inside of each one. And we want to kind of get you as prepared as possible to get your team up and running. Reopening your practice takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of thoughtfulness and intentionality. And I know that by just having an idea of how we maybe have done things, you might do it differently, but at least we give you a little bit of kind of support and share with you a little bit about our pain spots and struggles. And the most important thing is, we want to give you as many resources as possible that you can actually take and utilize in your practice with your team and help restart your dental practice.
So I'm going to take over here for a second. As dentists and as dental practices, there is so much happening with respect to how it's impacting us in terms of post-COVID and how we're going to operate. So the first is really an element of safety. We need to make sure that our practices are safe, our staff is safe, and that our patients are safe. The next big one is expectations. What are your expectations as a dentist? What are the team's expectations? What is your expectation of your practice, how it's going to evolve? And certainly your patients are coming in with a very informed view of COVID, but through the lens of dentistry, there still remains so much uncertainty. And that's where really a significant challenge to consider is patient communication. We really need to strive to have as much reassurance as possible and education. Another grim reality, unfortunately, is that there are supply shortages. So not only are we struggling to conceptualize how we're returning, but with what tools. We'll certainly touch on this. And then the last is the definition of success. What really was successful to you 3 months ago is not what's going to be success for you in your mind in the next 3 months. So these are really important factors that are constraining us right now. And we look at the return to dentistry from a risk perspective. The arrow is time since closure. When our practice is closed, conceptually we had an idea of, okay, well maybe I'll ride this out for a little bit. But as you can see, as we've moved along, we are now in the process of our defined goals in terms of what our colleges have put forward as measures. We're managing it. And now we really want to have everybody be as enabled as possible to take the lead in reopening their practices.
So we want to make a disclosure in this presentation is that we're not your college. We will never try to give you any advice and we say do this versus that. I want you to be very aware that you need to go back to your provincial guidelines between the government and the college of what they want you to do. All what we're doing right here is just sharing our story. We're going to tell you what we have done in our practices in accordance to the provincial guidelines. You might not agree with everything we've done. We understand that. We're very creative as a dental community. Everyone kind of do their own thing. But we just want you to watch, to kind of listen to what we have done in our practices and evaluate it. And if you find that any of it is something you want to apply, feel free to use our resources and use it with your team. So the first thing we needed to do with every one of our practices is to evaluate if our practice is actually ready to open. And that's a greedy and important question that you want to consider really early on. And one of the concepts we kind of developed in our group is what we kind of eventually called the recovery journey. And my team laughs about this, but that's kind of the analogy I'm giving to most of my dentists and myself, is a lot of dentists think they've been on vacation in Hawaii for 6 weeks, and now they decided to go back to work. They're just gonna flip the switch and things go back to normal. And what I'm trying to say is it was actually more like you were driving home, you got hit by a trailer, you were in ICU for like a couple of weeks, and now you're trying to figure out how I'm gonna go back to normal life. I know it's a little bit dramatic, but it actually brings the point back home, is that you want to think about coming to your operation, not as that I was on vacation and came back, but it's more of a recovery journey. And we kind of landed 6 steps that we think every team could go through, our teams went through to be able to kind of put your team back in together and restart your dental practice. Step number 1 is you're going to evaluate the readiness of our office. Step number 2, bringing your team on board. Step number 3, training the team. And then I don't know who came with it from my regional managers. I'm not taking the credit for it, but we came up with the concept of dry run. It's a day when every team member comes in, they try the gear, they try the system, they try how we're doing things. And then it's a fun day so that everyone just gets used to the new reality. And then we have our opening day, we call it D-Day. And then we're committed as a team that we're gonna be very flexible to change the way we do things as more information comes every day. So, Christine, you want to talk about the resources?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I've just had a bit of feedback that my voice is a bit scratchy. Is it still, or is it clear?
You're good.
Okay, I'm okay. Okay. So in terms of available resources, we welcome you to go visit dentallook.ca/Sinclair. and sign up. We've put together a lot of effort and making an excellent resource library that we'll share with you. So please visit the site and we'll make sure that you get involved in the process of receiving a lot of our hands-on material that we develop for our own offices.
And I just want to say it's Dentalook with one L, not double L. That's kind of the most common mistake we get. Okay, Christine.
Okay, so let's talk about our 4S framework. When we came up with this idea, it was really as evolved through our meetings, and it just became really clear that we needed a framework in which to tackle this monstrous to-do list of how we were going to approach things. So the first S is structure for physical changes. The second is systems. The third is safety. And the fourth is staff. So we're going to take a bit of time and go through each one of these and see how the framework that we applied enabled us to open our practices. So the first is structures. Now in Saskatchewan, we had a very significant issue in the sense that there was an immediate mandate that treatment rooms be separated. And we had to get creative very quickly to figure this out. And again, that required a lot of mobilizing. We looked at things like sneeze guards. We had to get that ready. The idea of a concierge area, which we'll get into. Team areas. Suddenly the dynamics of how our team was going to operate, we realized would change. And we needed to reorganize our waiting areas as well. So these were considerations. And so here's some of our key learnings. One, engage your contractors early. There is so much competition. There are so many businesses coming back online right now that need to service so many different customers. So engage your team. A lot of our best resources and ability to pivot quickly came because people on our team had contacts, connections, friends, somebody who could go in and help us drape with the poly. And really get creative in how you look to enable this. Where you can make solutions that are short-term, fantastic. If not, just, get creative. And our pain points, supply availability. It was tough to get things. So here are some examples of different work in progress, reception areas, sneeze guards. Next slide. And this was some temporary solutions. And again, some examples of what we did with real solutions.
And I want to jump in here and say something that please don't take this seminar or webinar that you're going to go and start doing this. This was requested in Saskatchewan. We created temporary separation areas. You have to follow your provincial guidelines for that. The second S that we need to talk about is systems. And the idea of the system, we had to envision the journey of the patient from the moment we call them till they leave the office. What are the steps that we need to take every single day with every single patient to ensure the safety of our team and the safety of our patients. So one of the things that came very clear to us is communication will be the deal breaker in how you implement this. You will never be a moment where you say, I over communicated. Anticipate issues, role play with the team. This is why that dry run day was phenomenal. I want you to assure you of two things. This presentation is going to be recorded so you can access it later on. There's a lot of materials that we're going to go in details that we have to skim quickly through because of the time constraint. But one of the things, once you sign up and you get us, we will send you a recorded session that have the detailed stuff in it so you don't have to worry about missing any of these pieces. So the whole idea is let's create a system. When a system is in place, things run way more faster than that.
Okay, so in terms of safety, this is our new normal. This is the environment that we're living in. And here's a great photo of one of our staff members getting fit tested. So what is involved in safety? Understand your PPE. That's a pretty detailed point. Consider staff wellness and understand your HR implications of these safety protocols as well. Next slide. And so here are some fun photos of our teams getting ready and comfortable with their PPE. Next slide.
So
okay.
The issue with safety and why it became really important in the dental field is in dentistry, we're not foreign to infectious diseases. We've been dealing with issues like AIDS or other stuff for a long time. The issue right now is we have a communicable disease that is mainly spread through aerosol and touch. And the perception right now in the market that we are actually could be a place where patients could be infected or could pass it to either team members, especially with that carrying phase where you could be asymptomatic and carrying COVID. So this puts a lot of pressure on our team to ask a lot of thorough questions. And the questions are, do we have the proper PPE to perform the procedures? And if yes, what are the stuff you need to consider? Do we have the proper mouth rinse? Do we have the proper disinfectant? Do we have the proper filtration system? Do we have more stuff that we can put in the hand of the dentist to reduce that aerosol produced in the room? Are we screening the patients? Are we monitoring our team members? Are we training the team properly? And are we communicating properly with the patients? All of this covers the issue of safety to allow us to really go back to the practice and know that we are providing an environment where my team feels safe and where the patients feel safe.
So in terms of also what our new normal is in the PPE world, we have our N95s, which everybody seems to be maintaining the fit test requirement. Level 1 to 3 masks, gowns, scrub caps, disposable bouffant caps, booties, face shields. The list really is far more extensive than we in dentistry are used to using on a day-to-day basis.
And the other stuff is we need to think also about the equipment that you can actually also introduce in the room. We've personally in our practices, we've added a high suction line in a lot of our hygiene rooms in anticipation once hygiene opens. We're introducing something like Isolite or an Easy Dam. I think the at source high suction is a good idea. We've introduced air filtration systems in our room, and we're also using like a disinfectant that we spray in the room to allow that aerosol to settle down faster.
And so perception is everything here. Everybody needs to understand that the dentist in your practice is a safe place to visit, and this comes from your staff and this comes from your patients. So listen, share, and provide.
So in terms of perception too, and it's one of the things that I kind of understood it more as we did this, is when patients come to the practice and see that nothing have changed in the practice, they will actually get concerned because this was a massive pandemic that shut down the whole world. When they see actually that you were prepped and you have implemented measures to protect them, that makes the patient really relax. That's why what we did is we provided a lot of reference guides, we did a lot of posters, videos, and we got updates on our supply every single day to be able to cover that for our team members. In terms of our staff, one of the biggest challenges that we had in this is to actually send a very strong message to our team members that we are not rushed. If you know the timeline, Saskatchewan came with a guideline, college came with a guideline. We were able to open most of our offices within a week. And the fear that was in there is like, oh my gosh, are we not prepped? And we're like, no, here are all the stuff that we have prepared specifically for our team members to be able to get them to that comfort zone. So one of the things we've done is we've done constant communication with our team members. We did a lot of social sharing. We use social media extensively with that. We did a pre-recorded video that we're offering to you guys at the end of the session today once you sign up for it. We have continuous daily feedback. We did a lot of written documents, and we did the dry run day. When the team saw that we're putting all of this together, the anxiety level went down. Again, I will tell you that everyone will be apprehensive the first day. Second day, you're going to see their shoulders going down a little bit, and they're getting more comfortable in the daily routine. So sorry, go ahead, Christine.
Oh, it's okay. I was going to say, so the summary of our our 4S framework is really about organizing our thoughts for how we're approaching opening our office. So again, structures, systems, safety, staff. And then as we would go through our check-in meetings with the team, we would move through our 4S's and make sure that everything was heading in the right direction. So it was really a game changer for us.
And one of the tools we're going to give you guys is this 4S framework with questions that you need to think about. And when you finish that exercise, it's going to be able to give you this action plan that allow you to go to the office and implement it properly. So one of the topics we've been talking about is the idea of the new success. What does the new success look post-COVID? And one of the funny incidents that happened in the last few days, in the first day when we did actually clinical work, is one of my office managers sent me an end of day sheet of production. And the number I think was something between $800 to $1,200. That's an office that usually produces between $5,000 to $6,000. As you can imagine, as a practice owner, the typical response for this is like, oh my gosh, what is that? Believe it or not, that $800 was the sweetest $800 I've seen in a long time, because we've been shut down for a long time. It's, again, the analogy is someone in the ICU and you're looking at their blood level or high blood pressure or the heart rate. You want to see that gradual improvement. And the way what we're trying to do with our practices is, instead of trying to open our door and bring everyone at the same time, we decided to do a gradual opening where we go from one receptionist, like one provider, one dentist, no hygiene, and then run maybe a day where we're not doing a lot of procedures, just exams, just to catch up on all the stuff, to progressively starting to add our providers every week, so that by the end of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, you have that gradual ascend to where that practice used to be before. So that takes us back to our recovery journey. Evaluate your readiness. That's where the 4S model is going to help you. Bring your team on board. We're going to give you a lot of resources that you can actually utilize with your team so they can use it. Train your team properly. Do the dry run day. Decide on where you're going to start seeing patients, and pivot. Understand that new information could come every day that could allow you to go in different directions.
So what are the tools that we're going to bring, and what are the tools that we brought to the table in terms of how we managed our opening processes? Well, we had our 4S template. We had a detailed guidance document that was basically a manual for our office, a day one checklist to really make sure that when we were having everybody come to the office, that they had a chance to work through the same checklists in all our practices. We have our COVID training slide deck for our office staff, and that's also been pre-recorded so people can listen to it on their own pace. We felt that that was really important, that it wasn't just one-time training, it was multiples. And then there's a wealth of resources in terms of posters and all sorts of different ways, again, to just reinforce the education point.
So part of the training, and that's a manual we're going to give you too, that you can look at. We have around 12 things that we've covered in that manual. Again, this is our own understanding. It applies specifically to our clinic. We don't ask you to go, please don't go and implement everything. You can do whatever you want, but this is just a guideline from our end. So the 12 things we're going to talk about is communication with the patients, booking and confirming appointments, entering and exiting the clinic for patients. We're introducing the concept of a concierge in the dental practice, and we'll go over that. We did a lot of protocols for our team members and the facility and the clinical procedures, and a good understanding of PPEs and how to extend the use of PPEs. So we're going to go through this side of the presentation very quickly because we want to open a door and a window for you guys to ask us questions. So we're going to go very quickly. We have a 15-minute recorded session that covers all of these points. So forgive us if we're going to go a little bit faster in this. We're not trying to give you half of the information, but you're going to have this as a recorded session.
Okay, so let's get into communication. And I just saw that somebody had posted a question quickly there about guidelines. So we're speaking from our experience in Saskatchewan. Certainly, you know, through everything you have to do your own guidelines. We're talking about what worked for us in the province of Sask. So communication. Everybody across the country needs to communicate with their patients, and that's an excellent place to start because it's changing and what we need to say has changed. So if you go back, Sam, sorry, there we go. Communication with patients. We really went through the exercise of making sure that we updated all of our platforms and we put together very specific scripts for our offices to use, and even just reminding them on your voicemail, be really enthusiastic. Let them know that we're here and excited. Okay, next slide. Appointment. So in terms of booking appointments, this has really changed, and we gave our staff a very specific script in terms of making sure that they're going through the processes. So we're telling our patients on the phone that things are going to be different. We're walking them through what's going to be different. We're emailing it, and one of our practices also recently just did a really great video animating that whole process for patients so that they are comfortable when they come to the door.
And one of my friends actually have helped us in creating some of those videos. Later on, if anyone wants to know about that, I'm happy to connect you with them. We also created a script for our team members when they call patients on the phone. Again, we'll go into details with this in the recorded video. The whole idea is when a patient comes in, you don't want them to be uninformed. You want them to be aware that the standard operating procedure have changed. We have implemented changes. We've taken your safety into consideration. That brings the stress level down. Be cognitive to the fact that as dentists, we live in this every day for patients to a little bit kind of, can I go back to the dentist? Can I be safe in there? So that communication part is massive when we are booking appointments. Now, when the patients are entering the clinic, we've kind of created also a protocol on how that flow of steps will go. Because one of the things we want to do is we want to maintain that social distancing even in the waiting area. So one of the things we've done is we've asked the patients to inform us that they arrived. We asked them to wait in the car. There's a text messaging going back and forth. When they arrive at the door, we implemented the function of a concierge who's going to come. We're going to go through those steps more with the concierge, but they're going to do a health assessment. They're going to make sure that the patient is covered with a certain form of PPE to allow them to be able not to be transmitting anything to any of our team members. And then the patient must be cleared before coming in and getting the treatment done. So that's part of how when the patient comes in, again, we created that flow of steps that now our team members are going through it. And you should see the reaction in the patient face when they find that we actually have implemented those changes in the practice. Christine?
Okay, so exiting the patient. So we've had the patient come through and they're exiting, just as important as when they enter. So exiting the office obviously takes a slightly different process. If it's a minor, that's why we have the little notes there, but their treatment's completed, they're given a mask, they clean their hands. If it's a minor, then we contact the guardian to come to the door to meet us. We arrange for payment. In our clinics, we're just making sure that we are doing cash payment only, and then so on, they'll throw out their mask. But a key part of facilitating all of this is a concierge, and Sam's gonna go into this.
So the idea of the concierge is that when a patient comes in, instead of them just coming to the waiting area and sitting, someone is going to meet them at the front desk area, provide them with a hand sanitizer, provide them with an assessment, take their temperature, give them mask. All of these steps show the patient that we're actually taking their safety into consideration. So patient is greeted, we confirm the patient detail, we review the screening tool we have, we take their temperature, there is a log sheet, we're going to share it with you that you can use. There is a consent form that we're asking patients to sign at this stage. We are giving them an awareness of how the dentist and the assistant will look like, because they're used to us with a glove and a mask. Now we're coming with those hazmat suits, not exactly hazmat, but we look heavily geared, right? We escort patients to the room that a concierge person is going to return to the station, wipe it down, and get the area ready for the next patient. This is the log sheet that we are asking the concierge to enter the documentation for the patients. We're also asking our team members to do daily measuring of their temperature so they are monitored on a day-to-day basis. And this takes us to the protocol for team members.
So in terms of our protocols for team members, we really want to focus on a few things. So our patterns of changing, our muscle memory for how we move in our practices and what we do is different. So that impacts things like gatherings. We don't want staff gathered up at the front desk. We have to stagger our lunch breaks. And in addition to everything else, we have to make sure that we're being compliant and we go through and we clean all of those high touch surfaces consistently through the day. And what we brought, again, these are tools that we have put together and how we've segmented it, but we want to make sure everybody's signed off on all the new protocols. We want to make sure that our wellness tools are understood. We want to make sure our infection control policies, that we have a high level of compliance, and educating our staff on PPE and how it works is critical.
And part of the PPE is understanding the PPE is extremely important, because we're kind of using certain equipment that we have not used before. And there are some concepts that are actually, it's very familiar in the medical world if you've ever scrubbed for a surgery in the hospital, but it's a little bit not that common in the dental world. So we're introducing the concept of donning and doffing. And we came up with a very simple way of remembering it. Is donning is putting things on. The goal is to put your equipment in the right manner. And that includes your N95, a level 1 to 3 mask, covering your legs, covering your hair, a gown that covers up to your sleeve and covers your neck area, and then the face shield and plenty of hand sanitizer and your gloves. We have a video that we're going to share with you on the proper way of doing the donning. And and this is again the steps. This is the brochure that we're going to share with you on. And again, you need to train your team member. That's the significance of that D-Day. Sorry, the dry run is that they're going to come and they're going to do this in that proper sequence, so you are ensuring the safety of your team members and patients. The other concept is the concept of doffing. How are you going to take this equipment off? There's a lot of conversation right now is as you work in an area where it's generating aerosol, that's going to come on your gown. What are you going to do with this gown? So again, the goal is to how to take this the proper way. Again, we have a video. We also have the sequence of steps that is recommended, at least in Saskatchewan, and that's what we have implemented in each clinic. Again, the team will need a time, one, to come into peace with the idea that they have to put this much protective equipment, and to allow them the time to actually practice doing that.
Okay, so in terms of the types of PPE that are going to be used, there's a wide range of it. And as we know, there's a global shortage on many, many things. And as we're experiencing recovery on some, others might drop. So we have advised our staff that gloves, they're plentiful, use them, we'll be using a lot. Critical piece in all of this, I think, nationally that we're facing is the shortage of N95 masks. So one of the processes that we've done is we've looked to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and the research on extended limited use of N95 respirators. There are tremendous resources out there. Again, we'll be sharing these resources with you. But the idea being they get one for every day of the week. There's a very specific way to store them in the day and then store them for the end of the week and then go ahead and reuse. So even though the price is high or it's difficult to access, if we're careful and follow the CDC protocols, we can really maximize our PPE. Certain PPE changes through the day, and we change with every patient depending on what we're doing. Hand sanitizer, it's all over the office. There are really a lot of great local distributors that have stepped up to manufacture. And then face shields, the way we're handling that is that there's 2 in a day and that they rotate so that they can be cleaned. And we can share the Saskatchewan Health protocol for how to clean your face shield in the day as well.
So one of the logics that's also guiding us in the decision making in this is that we understand that we're now at a very interesting time where a lot of our main suppliers are trying to get enough amount to be used. So we're allocating a certain amount per team member. We're educating them on the concept of extended use, because the last thing you want to do is for your team member to treat an N95 the same way they treat a level 1 mask. And what we've done is we kind of educated them about using 1 mask per day. And that mask at the end of the day goes to an open bag. That open bag stays on the shelf for a week. That allows that mask to dry. And that mask could actually extend the use of it up to 5 weeks. So for one provider, 5 masks could actually take them up to 5 weeks of clinical use, as long as you're covering them with the proper level 1 or 3. Now, this is not our recommendation. There are credible sources that support this practice, and we will share that with you too.
And Sam, I just wanted to just add in there quickly. Obviously, we're speaking to the Saskatchewan experience. It has to be fit tested. It must be an N95. I know province to province is different. And I think that even if you just look at what Alberta put out recently, there's different guidance. So please look at your local protocols. Saskatchewan was first. I think they went in with an incredibly high standard. And now as other evidence is coming, there's a different understanding of what PPE may be acceptable. So please look to exactly what your local guidance is.
Next thing, we kind of talked about facility protocols. And the idea is it goes back to the 4S, just to make sure that our facility is equipped properly to be able to provide the proper care. Again, we're going to go over this in details in the training. Again, there is an element where it relates to the team members in terms of the training, getting the facility cleaned properly. We're kind of stepping up the bar in everything we do. In terms of systems, including the concierge idea, the way we schedule, sending messages to people to inform them. Again, the safety part, it's all over our practice, just to make sure, to let the patients know that we're taking safety into consideration. And then, of course, all the structural changes that we have done. So one of the things we're providing to you, and we provided to our team, is a detailed day one checklist that you should maybe go through it. The other thing is we have also a section for a lot of posters that we find that putting it all over the practice also sends a great message to our team members. In terms of clinical protocols, one of the things that we have uniquely in Saskatchewan, and I think it will be in every other province, is we kind of made a very clear distinction between aerosol and non-aerosol generating procedures. And in that, we created isolated rooms where we can perform aerosol generated procedures with a door to prevent the movement of aerosol from one room to the other. We did not do any permanent changes. Most of the changes we've done was temporary with using poly and different things. Again, stick to the guidelines that is offered to you. We're following our guideline in Saskatchewan. There is also a procedural rinse that we're recommending for every single patient based on the guidelines. And then there is a recommendation of what kind of gear you want your team members to be wearing based on a non-aerosol generating procedure and an aerosol generating procedure. And obviously, in the areas where you're generating more aerosol, you're using a heavier gear. The procedures that are currently restricted in Saskatchewan is cavitron for hygiene, selective polishing, laser usage. Again, you're going to see that in the presentation. We have a long list of things that we are able to do in Saskatchewan. Again, follow the guidelines from your college. This will be again in the training that we have recorded for you. And then there are acceptable aerosol generating procedures that also is allowed to do between endo, restorative, pediatric, and complex extractions. The judgment call is back to the dentist to decide what kind of procedure they're comfortable to be doing right now. With our doctors, we're giving them the guideline and we're asking them to use their best judgment call about what needs to be done or maybe what needs to be delayed. Obviously, there was a long period of wait where patients have been waiting for a lot of things to be done. So now we're just clearing that backlog and then going from there. In Saskatchewan also, there was this regulation about the settle time, which the college recommended to be 120 minutes. That guideline is actually also comes from Health Saskatchewan. And the idea is that if you don't do anything, and that's my current understanding of it, if you don't do anything in the room, if there was aerosol generating, you need to wait 120 minutes. There is a provision too about that if you introduce extra stuff in there that could reduce the waiting time. So what we've done is we've introduced something like Isolite, we've introduced the spray, we've introduced an air filtration system. The idea is to shorten that time. We're still waiting to see for our practices in Ontario what will be the guideline for our CDSO, but we know that Manitoba and Alberta maybe have a different view on this.
And so a little bit about scheduling now, getting towards the end of our protocol and our presentation here. So scheduling is really important. And when you think about opening up your practice, obviously we're not going back to the full operational level that we once were. So consider, and next slide, Sam. So consider your staffing needs and how you're going to ramp that up. And also consider how you're staggering your appointments contingent upon what your local groups say is appropriate to do in what rooms for however long with however much settle time. So it's a bit of a puzzle to put together, but really take some time and think about it. We've taken a very measured and controlled approach, and it ensures that everybody is trained, comfortable. But I think we're really seeing the return of the team as a really positive thing, and we're getting really great feedback about being open again.
So the key point is that our approach back to normal have been slow and steady. And we didn't try to bring all dentists, all hygienists same day. We just started a progressive coming back to the recovery that we've talked about.
And finally, resources. So I've seen in the chat a number of different questions. Yes, we have a wealth of resources. So we really want to pay this forward, and we want to raise everybody's collective efforts right now, and we're better as a team, as a whole group of dental professionals here together. So if you visit this website here, dentalook.ca with one L /Sinclair, and you sign up, we will start to make sure that you get everything that you need, including this pre-recorded video, which Sinclair has also done. We have a very detailed one that we've done for our staff training, that you'll have access to, key posters, checklists. We've really put together a fantastic library, and we're really excited to share it and have everybody get back to dentistry.
Awesome. We were tempted to sell the material. I'm just kidding. But we put a lot of work into this, and we're very happy to share it with all of our dental colleagues, because we really think we are a stronger community if we can stand together. These are unusual times, and we're happy to share our information with you. And with that, thank you so much. Sorry for rushing really quickly at the end. All of that will be a recorded session for all of you guys.
Fantastic information, guys. We got tons of questions coming in here right now.
Can I stop my share at this point?
Yeah. You know what? One thing is kind of a general comment, or maybe a story you could share is, what was like a patient story that you guys first saw like last week when you started first seeing patients, and what was their kind of feedback?
So the interesting thing, and if you don't mind, I'll answer this. The interesting thing we've heard repeatedly is that patients are actually excited to come back, you know, like, which is surprising because we think patients don't want to come and see us. But reality, patients are actually like, once the Saskatchewan came back and they said they're reopening their economy, and they said that dental practices are open, our phones did not stop ringing. People are calling us all the time to really come and see the dentist. You have to understand, some people have been being treated with antibiotic for weeks for an abscess that nobody have been looking at it. So they're actually really excited to come back. They're very thankful when they come and see that we have taken the measures. And I can't stress this enough. Perception, guys, is key. The more you come across to your team and people that you have taken measures to do that, to show them that you're actually caring for them, they really respond. So we got a lot of thank yous. We got a like, oh my gosh, you guys are doing amazing. Thank you for taking all of this. Oh my gosh, they laugh at the dentist of all the look. We kind of trying to make it funny. We're aliens. We've done kind of posters, cute things, kind of to tell people about it. But if all of that so far, when patients see that we're prepped, you see their shoulders relax, and they're really happy to come back.
Yeah, I mean, humor, you know, obviously gets us through these. Obviously, you guys have a plan, so that's fantastic. Another question that kind of leads into this is, when you first returned, how did you manage your initial couple of weeks of schedule? Did you wipe all existing appointments clean to accommodate the previous week's backlog, or do you just add the backlog into your existing bookings and wipe out anything elective?
So obviously we've been delaying treatments because when we started talking about COVID, the plan was to come after Easter. Easter came and we never came back. So a lot of patients have been pushed down, but we also understand that this is not status quo. So what we're doing right now is prioritizing emergency and urgent care, and a lot of the stuff that was being on hold. We have patients that there's a joke about one of my doctors that he did an insertion of 30 crowns in one day. That's a joke, he did not. But that's how much kind of backlog of work needs to be done. Patients have been on those temps, temp broke a couple of times. So they're like excited to get some still. We're prioritizing emergencies and completed work. We're pushing a lot of the elective stuff a little bit further down, but we're focused. So yeah, we did wipe out the schedule and rebuild it in a way with a lot of screening. And again, I mean, big thank you to all our admin people, with our office managers that have worked really hard to go through countless number of phone calls to be able to arrange that.
Excellent. Now, this one's a little more private, so I'm not sure if you're going to want to share this one.
I'm single, yes.
It kind of leads into what you just said about your one friend there doing 30 crowns, but how was the revenue from day one versus the average day revenue?
And I said there was a joke about it, is that I saw an $800 production at the end of the day, and I was like, let's celebrate. Again, it's, you know, it's like someone who was dead and you see a pulse for the first time. It's like 34 pulse per minute. He might die at any moment, but it's good. It's like, you know, like when you watch those medical shows and everyone, like, they just shock the patient and everyone's looking at the monitor and suddenly you see a tiny frickle pulse in there. I think that's what we're looking for, is like, this practice have been dead for weeks. But I will tell you, we had a practice last week that actually in one day almost built $3,000 to $4,000 of dentistry, which was actually spectacular under the circumstances and of all of the things we're doing. But obviously that practice used to be a massive builder. So what I'm telling people is be patient, moderate your expectations, don't push too much because everyone is kind of on their edge, right? Slowly build up that revenue. And I think eventually we'll get close to where we used to be, but it's going to just take time.
Right.
I don't know if this answered, did that answer the question?
Yeah. No, that's good. That's one that seems to be a hot topic, PPE.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts about charging that to the patient?
What do you think, Christine?
So we've started to, and it's on my desk and I haven't finished it, calculate case costing. So if it's an aerosol versus non-aerosol, what would our average cost be? So obviously some of the costs are higher. There's discussion about doing it. I think we have to be careful. For something like a glove, if we were always going to use a glove, is that fair? If you maximize the use of some of your respirators, your N95s, you're not going to stick them with the full price, but it's a difficult decision. I don't know that we have come to a final conclusion in our practices. And, there's some things like, gowns are hard to get right now. We're coming up with solutions that are longer term, and we're phasing in what we can, how we can. So, a dollar cost per case today might not be the same dollar cost 2 weeks from now when suddenly, now, okay, we're all drowning in bouffant caps. And we have gowns on the market, so we're excited, and it's a small percentage of our case costing.
So the topic did come to the table, and we did not reach a decision about it. The overwhelming feeling is people have been out of work. People are already struggling financially. Are we going to put one more obstacle on them to come and see the dentist? We know that ultimately the fee guide is going to adjust to incorporate the way we did with sterilization, for example. So there's going to be a correction in the market for sure. But for now, our overall consensus is that we're just going to, we're just going to ride the wave. We're going to help as much as we can and then wait to see what the dental community want to do about this. But it's definitely a consideration that we have not made a decision about it yet. As of now, we're not charging, just to be clear. We're not charging in any of our practices.
Gotcha. So we're on the topic of PPE. Mm-hmm. Kind of going back to scheduling, with the cost of that PPE, how do you foresee scheduling a recall exam?
Try to ask me in a different way. I didn't get that. One more time.
So since a recall exam isn't typically a very high billing thing, and you have to gown up, gown down, whatever it might be, would you change the way you schedule for a recall exam?
So one thing we are making a very clear distinction about is what is the PPE needed for going to a room where there will be an aerosol generated, and what are the PPEs you need for a non-aerosol generated room. So right now for exams, we don't need the heavy gear because there is no aerosol in there. So that's not a consideration for us. The other thing we're doing is we're doing what we came up with as a non-aerosol days, where we bring as many patients as possible for a lot of exams, so you don't have to gown heavily in and out. Again, it reduces your production, but the way we're thinking about it, I'm not trying to make plans for 6 months at this point. I'm actually trying to put plans for the next 6 to 8 weeks. I'm gonna ride what's good, because things could change. Like if we come up with a screening tool tomorrow, the market is gonna switch 100%. So it's all about, we're trying to deal with what I have right now. I'm gonna manage it. I wanna train my team. At least at the end of the 4 weeks, I have a well-trained team that is comfortable in the new guideline, and I'm actually generating dentistry. And then slowly, as the guidelines becomes more clear, we're gonna change and adapt to that. So I'm trying to keep it as small as possible, small chunks at this point, in terms of how we're managing it.
Okay, good. Yeah. Since PPE is a popular subject right now, I'm going to stick with that. How much time are you adding to donning and doffing on top of regular procedure time?
I mean, we're adding the issue is honestly not the donning and the doffing. It's the issue of the settle time for us in Saskatchewan. That's where it's a little bit rough. So what we're doing is we're lucky that in some of our facilities, we have maybe 3 rooms for a dentist. So we're not pushing anyone in this guideline, like it's all a matter of the discretion of the dentist. If they want to wait the 120 minutes, although we've implemented a lot of other stuff to reduce the time, what they're doing is they're going to room A, doing a procedure. They're taking off the donning and doffing. Honestly, once you get comfortable with it, it's 5 minutes, not that much, right? But it's actually the settle time that's actually the time. Now, the first time is going to take a longer time because, oh, did I do this right? Did I do wrong? Kind of comical. Maybe we should all have recorded videos of the first time we did PPEs heavily. But the idea is you go room 1, you finish it, you go to room B, you go to room C. By the time you're done with room C, you go to room 1 and it's already ready for treatment. So that's how kind of the donning and doffing itself is not taking a long time. It's a gown, it's a mask. Once you get to the habit of it, my best analogy for this is when AIDS come in the 80s. I was not a dentist at that time, but I heard people were very offended by the fact that I'm using gloves and masks. What do you mean? This is not for us. But then eventually as a profession, we evolve. And I think maybe this is the second wave for us evolving forward.
Okay. Have you guys looked into foggers or disinfectants?
100%.
Yeah?
Every one of our practices have. The foggers are on back order. We try to get as many as we can. If you can't find them, it's because of us. We bought all of them from The idea is there is a disinfectant we're happy to share with you. It's not a secret. The Health Canada approved. The idea is that it catches the aerosol, drop it to the floor. It's the same thing. They use it in daycares, hospitals, airplanes, whatever.
They're using it at the airport heavily.
Yeah, so basically you spray, and the idea is that the COVID is in the aerosol, in the air, it captures it, lands to the ground, and then you can, their Health Canada approval says 10 minutes. The colleges is silent on the fact that if we can use it or not. We're giving it to our team members and as an extra level of protection. But I think that fogger is a great idea, as long as it's safe for our team members to use it safely. But I think that's a great idea.
Okay, good. How do we switch our rooms to hygiene for recalls if we are in the middle of a procedure with all PPE? Do we have to just switch all PPE?
So do you want me to answer that one?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So one of the really important things is that I kind of alluded to the idea of muscle memory, right? We have the idea of how we buzz about our practice. Can I get a check? I got to do with this. I'm going to pop in. No, if there's aerosol, you kind of have to treat it like it's an operation and you're scrubbed in. This is your procedure. You're doing your aerosol. You take it off, and then your PPE, right? And then you can go and treat the next patient. So it's about a mindset of being very systematic about how our clinical team moves through the day. And yeah, it's tricky. There's going to be a lot of habits that are hard to undo. And again, province to province is so different. So for some, if it's non-aerosol, I think memory serves, and I'm probably wrong, but you can take off your gown. You just need to have some sort of a gown on, right? Like there's such amount of variability. I'll probably misquote something, so I'm going to end that train of thought. But just be considerate, look at your aspects, and be cognizant that our practice and how we move is changing.
And one of the things we have implemented too is staggering when is the start time. So historically, dental offices are notorious with the fact that everyone starts at 9, first appointment ends at 10 or whatever. And then in the middle of the procedure, you get a nod on your shoulder. Hey, doctor, we have 2 exams. You jump, you go to the other 2 rooms and come back. This has been changing right now, because now if you are in an aerosol generated room, but again, this is a Saskatchewan guideline. I don't know what other provinces is. We have the challenges. You have to stay there till the procedure is done, which means your hygiene patient is actually waiting till they are done. So if we stagger the appointment where the hygiene maybe starts 5 minutes after the dental appointment, our hope, we haven't really proved it practically, but our hope is by the time the dentists have done doffing, then he is in a stage where there is 2 hygiene patients ready for his check. he finished them, and then there is that 10-minute gap where he can go back, put the donning, and go and see the next patient. So it becomes literally, I don't know, maybe the older generation will understand what I'm going to say, but if you remember Tetris, putting all these blocks. So it's literally like a Tetris game, just putting those blocks together in the right order. So you need to talk. You know what's the best advice I'm going to give to a lot of dentists? And as dentists, we think we know it all. And actually we do, maybe. I mean, I think we do. But I think talk to your team. Your front desk and team knows a lot about, and that's part of the engagement. Get your team on board. The best ideas we had did not come from me, came actually from my operation people. It came from the front desk. It came from the office manager. It came from the assistant. The biggest mistake you're going to do as a practice owner is you do all of this on your own and then get your team members on board, because they're like, oh my gosh, where were you? Like, hey, it's in 8 weeks. So get them engaged as soon as possible, because they will start giving you the reality that you're not ready to accept maybe early on. And we had conversations where my mind is going in one direction and my operation teams, no, we're not going to do it this way. It's like, why? It's like, here's why. So I think there's a lot of wisdom from ground troops that are actually, because we're usually in the back doing dentistry. We don't know how we schedule appointments. So as long as you give them the parameter, they're smart enough to be able to help you with that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like they're your frontline people. They're going to see a lot of things that you don't see on a daily basis.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We have time for a couple more questions. What's your thought process on giving exiting patient masks?
So we're giving every patient a mask when they come in. We're asking them to keep the mask in the level, not N95, please don't give them N95s, level 1 mask, level 1 mask, just to cover them, because you know what, like right now, and I don't know if socially you guys have seen it, like the biggest maybe fatal mistake you can do in a convenience store is to cough. It's like a nightmare. Everyone's looking at you, staring at you. I'm going to get COVID from you. So we don't want the patients to feel uncomfortable if they have to cough or anything. So we're covering them so they know they're protected. We're asking them that when they go to the room to put the mask in their, either in their pocket or on the side. And when they finish the procedure, we're asking them to do the rinse, put the mask back and exit the room. And they can keep that mask with them if they want to.
It's in the guidelines for Saskatchewan as a requirement. As to like, is this our great idea? No, it's a requirement.
Okay.
If it's not a requirement and you have some level 1s, it's really not a bad way to go.
Okay.
Great question.
From the PPE area, let's talk about hygiene a little more. Did you increase hygiene appointment times? If they're only hand scaling versus and non-aerosol generation?
This is a big topic. We were talking about it yesterday, because this is our second week with we opened actually, we did most of our dry run days on May 4th, last week.
So sorry, there was another question also. How much time did you spend practicing?
Honestly, it's a half a day. I mean, it's so again, I'm faulty of trying to do things excessively. That's just my nature as a Capricorn. I want to do.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I like to do things excessively. So we had the PowerPoint that we are going to share with you guys recorded. We went through it slide by slide with every team member. Make sure they ask plenty of questions. You really know that your team is engaged when they start asking you more questions. And then we showed them the PPEs. We practiced on it. And then we did a trial. Okay, patient comes in, what do we do? It's literally like doing a play. It's the trial for the play before you actually do the actual play. So half a day was more than enough. But there is also a comprehensive checklist that we actually incorporated from Sinclair for how do you start your equipment after shutdown for a long time. We have that resource also for you guys. We went through that step by step. The team went and decluttered everything. There's a lot of things that needs to be done. So the training is only one component. So you need to think about the D-Day as training, bringing them on board, cleaning the office, disinfecting it, taking as much as from the ops as possible, getting them comfortable in the ins and out, and then just try to do one run of a patient of how that would look like.
Gotcha. Okay. This is for rural areas, actually. Since some of your offices are in rural areas and traveling might be required for some of your dentists, Are you requiring them to quarantine before seeing patients?
Christine, I'll let Christine.
So in terms of, are you asking if our dentists have to be quarantined or the patients have to be dentists? So
Dentist.
again, dentists. So province to province, there are very specific guidelines. So if you're, you know, it plays into part of where you're coming from and where you're going to. That is widely available information. So for Saskatchewan, it does not impact us. However, I do believe that the wording is that they have to monitor for symptoms, which we're doing anyway. When everybody walks in the office, every single staff member is doing their daily health assessment, including a temperature check. And you know, and we're healthcare providers. So if you look at a lot of the self-quarantining guidelines as they come, there always seems to be an asterisk for healthcare providers. Again, province. Yeah.
There is an exception. You're right.
Yeah.
So the guideline is: are they coming? And correct me, Christine, if this is right. If they're coming from outside Canada, they have to self-isolate in Saskatchewan.
Yes.
If they're coming from another province in Canada, no. And there is an asterisk where for healthcare providers there is a kind of an exception as long as they self-monitor. So you're right on, Christine.
Excellent. You know what? We're going to wrap it up today. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, Sam, can you put on the resource slide one more time? I just saw that in the chat, people were asking questions about how they can get the resources. Just as you wrap up, Seneca.
I have to go back.
Just go back one.
Oh, sorry, stopped. One more time.
We just want to make sure that everybody can see the website.
Resources, sorry. I'm gonna go to my presentation mode. Here you go.
So that's the website. There's a form, just type in some information and then it'll start to flow. The information will start coming forward. And Sinclair will have this presentation available in a recorded file to access within the next few days.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, we're gonna wrap up from there. We got a lot of, just a couple of housekeeping items. We got a lot of questions around PPE, some that we addressed, some we couldn't. Really, at the end of the day, it's gonna depend on the province that you live in. A lot of questions on, is there CE credits for this webinar? No, unfortunately, there is not. No. Finally, the recording of the webinar will be available in a day, and we will email out the link in a follow-up. I'd like to cap it off by saying thank you to our wonderful speakers, Dr. Seth Mazarai and Christine Russell, for joining us today and giving up their time and preparing everything today. A lot of what they said today are great things to think about, and well, I think everyone's going to incorporate that. Anyway, hope everyone enjoys the webinar, and I hope you're going to stay safe and healthy. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.